Alright, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to start this lesson off by giving all the praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Rakakudash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, honors to all the brothers who are fervently pushing the word in sincerity and in faith. Shalom to all the sincere believers. Now, this lesson is going to be based on this precept, Proverbs 3 and 31. So, through the Spirit, I'm going to read this precept, get some definitions, probably get some other precepts to go along with it. And Adawan Ratzazah, you're edified. So Proverbs 3:31. Envy thou not the oppressor, and choose none of his ways. And Esau, the so-called white man, is the oppressor. He has gone throughout the world for centuries, rape, robbing, and murdering everyone that he's come across, stealing their lands, stealing their resources, putting them in slavery, just doing all sorts of horrible things to people. And the scriptures are telling us to envy thou not the oppressor. So we're not supposed to envy them. We're not supposed to be jealous of them because they're wicked. They are the wicked. So I have the definition of envy here. It says envy is a painful emotion, a resentful longing for someone else's superior quality, achievement, or possession, often coupled with a desire for them to lack it, stemming from insecurity or compassion, and it manifests as discontent, bitterness, or even destructive behavior, but can be managed by reducing triggers like social media and focusing on self-improvement over comparison. So, the main point is that it is a resentful longing for someone else's superior quality, achievement, or possession. The thing is that these Edomites, they're not superior to us. These Edomites, these so-called white people, are the bottom of the barrel. They are actually the most inferior nation of people. But because the Israelites, primarily the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, because we angered the Lord with the constant wickedness that our people were doing, the Lord brought us down. He basically flipped the script and he put Esau on top of us because these Edomites are the weakest and most inferior of the nations, and the Israelites are the most superior of the nations because we are the Lord's chosen people. But the Lord was angry with us because of our constant wickedness. We kept provoking the Lord unto wrath. So his punishment for us was for us to go into captivity under our enemies. That's why the so-called white man and the Arabs and the Indians and the Chinese and the Japanese and all these other nations are over us. That was our punishment. It's like, let's say you have a job and you're the best person at that job, but you keep acting up and getting yourself into trouble. So then your boss puts you under the new guy, Now you basically answer to the new guy who, doesn't have your level of skills, or anything, Like that's embarrassing, But we can't even be mad because it's our own fault. We provoked the Lord unto wrath. We kept following the ways of the heathen. And this is our punishment. But the thing is, our punishment is almost up. And another reason why we should never envy these Edomites or these other nations, but in particular these Edomites, is because the Lord is going to destroy these Edomites. Like the Lord gave them control over the world, and look at the state of the world. The world is in total chaos. Just look at America. America is in shambles. There's so much chaos and division and violence and suffering and misery going on in this place. Why would you want to be envious of someone who has everything? Because Esau was, like I said, Esau was given control over the earth. And yet, look at all the chaos that he's caused. Everybody hates this man. The whole world is turning on Esau. Even other Edomites are turning on Edomites. So we should never be envious of them. At the end of the day, the Lord created us way better than them. And no, even Slakia. And even though our people have been through so much, the slavery, the redlining, the Jim Crow, being put in the ghettos, a lot of our people are up in these prisons, all of the things that Esau has put us through, our people still dominate whenever we get into something. We get into sports, we dominate, we get into music, we dominate, we get into art, we dominate because we are the Lord's chosen people, and the Lord, he's never going to forsake us. He's always going to show that even though he's angry with us, that we are still his people. We're still his favorite. He's always going to let it be known. And it pisses Esau off because Esau has done so much to try to destroy us, and yet the Lord won't let us get destroyed. Like, we're still out here dominating and making very significant moves. Like, the world moves because of us, because of Israelite influence, the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans primarily. That's why the world moves. It has nothing to do with Esau. Esau destroys everything. So we're not supposed to envy them, because in reality, they're not superior to us. We are stronger than them. We're faster than them. We're smarter than them. We're better than them. The Lord made us that way. The only reason why we're in the position that we're in is because this is our punishment, because we angered the Lord. Okay, now I have the definition of oppressor. And it says, an oppressor is a person or group that uses power cruelly and unjustly to dominate or burden others, often through harsh laws, unfair treatment, or force, creating a severe imbalance where the powerful exploit the vulnerable, like dictators or tyrannical leaders. And everybody's been saying that Donald Trump is moving like a dictator. He's unleashing ICE and the National Guard on American citizens. He's trying to turn the military on American citizens, just completely abusing his power. And Esau in general, these Edomites in general, like I said, the slavery, the redlining, the Jim Crow, what they did in Vietnam, what these Edomites did in Japan, what they did in, I believe, Afghanistan and Iraq, what they did to the Native Americans, the so-called Native Americans. All of these horrific things that these Edomites, these so-called white people, in particular the so-called white man, has done. They are the oppressors. The whole world is all screwed up and thrown out of whack because of these Edomites. They oppress and kill people, or murder people, I should say. They poison the air, they poison the food, they poison the water, they hunt animals down to extinction. They're chopping down all these trees, which provide oxygen. They're constantly drilling into the world, into the earth, not giving the earth any rest. Like, everything about these Edomites is just wrong, and it just leads to destruction and death. Like, these Edomites are not in charge, so to speak, because, they're so smart and everything they do is just better for everyone. That's not why. See, the world, and in particular those of us, who are Israelites, we had to experience this. We had to experience what true wickedness looked like. And Esau is that. He's the human manifestation of wickedness, of everything wrong, of everything that you should not want to be. You see it here in America in particular. These Edomites, they'll get on the internet and they'll brag about the horrific things that ICE is doing, or that the National Guards are doing, or that Trump is doing. And they'll be like, yeah, this is what I voted for. They voted for people to get kidnapped out of their homes, kidnapped from their jobs, kids getting kidnapped out of their schools by ICE, people getting murdered by ICE out in the streets. Like, these Edomites, they'll brag about that. They're proud of that. These Edomites are cheering on Trump, having launching attacks and strikes on other countries, like just doing all sorts of wickedness. And like I said earlier, even America's own allies are turning against them because they're like, yeah, you're doing too much. Like, Canada and the UK in particular are like backing away from America. They don't want to be associated with America anymore, because it's like the Edomites over here in America are just going crazy. And I'm not saying that the Edomites out there in the UK or in Canada or anywhere else in the world are not bad. They're all bad because they're all they're Edomites, They are all the wicked. But even they're looking at America like, okay, y'all are doing way too much, And we know that Esau, especially over here in America, he's only going to push the envelope more and more. He's only going to use his power more cruelly and unjustly to dominate and burden others. He's going to put out more harsh laws and unfair treatment. That's what's going to happen. The scriptures tell us that the earth was given into the hands of the wicked. Esau, the so-called white man, is the one ruling the world right now. They are the wicked. These other nations are wicked, but the so-called white man is the wicked, the pinnacle of wickedness. Esau is as wicked as it gets. And that's why we're not supposed to envy them, because like it says in Psalm 7 and 11, Yahweh judgeth the righteous, and Yahweh is angry with the wicked every day. Now, yes, that applies to, the wicked of our people, these 2/3 of so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans who are out here following the wicked ways of Esau and these other nations. The Lord is also angry with these other nations because, they're heathens and they're wicked. But primarily, the wicked, capital, is these so-called white people. They are the wicked. Everything they do is wrong. They are a complete 180 to the Lord. They're completely adverse to the scriptures. See, the Lord is about righteousness. Esau is about wickedness. Wisdom of Solomon 2 and 10. Let us oppress the poor righteous man. Let us not spare the widow, nor reverence the ancient gray hairs of the age. And that's exactly what these Edomites do. They oppress everybody. They make it difficult for you to live with all their unjust laws. Constantly up in their retirement age so that people, have to just basically work until they die. People have to have 3 or 4 jobs, and even with those 3 or 4 jobs, people can barely pay their rent, pay their bills, buy groceries, put gas in their car, if they can even afford a car. People can't afford their medical care. Like, this is what Esau does. This is what the so-called white man does. He just hurts everybody, even his own people. This is why these devils were not fit to rule. But we had to see it. See, the world had to see what true wickedness looks like. So that way, when the Lord destroys these Edomites, nobody is going to miss them. Nobody is going to mourn for them. Because in the kingdom of heaven, once these Edomites serve their 1,000 years of slavery, and then the Lord rounds them up and wipes them out by the hand of his people Israel, these other nations, they're going to get put back in their land, and everyone's going to be happier. There's going to be clean air and clean food and clean water, and the insects are going to be happy, and the animals are going to be happier, and the earth itself is going to be happier. Because you won't have these wicked, destructive Edomites just running rampant and screwing up everything. There is no making America great again. There is no white people, running things, completely and totally like what they're trying to do. The Lord appointed Esau's bounds that he cannot pass. These Edomites, their time is almost up, and they can tell. They can feel it. And that's why they're ramping up their wickedness. They're scratching and clawing and throwing anything and everything at the wall and hoping it sticks, because they're trying to stay in power. But they can't, because the Lord has set a timer upon them, a bound that they can't pass. And once that timer runs out, it's game over for them. The Lord is going to shut down these Edomites. He's going to shut down America, shut down Canada, the UK, Germany, France, Italy. Every stronghold of these Edomites is going down. And these Edomites and everyone who aligns themselves with these Edomites is going down right along with them. Like, the story does not end well for these Edomites. There is no happy ending. There is no riding off into the sunset for these Edomites. They're going to pay for all the wickedness and the atrocities and the murder that they've committed. There is no escape for them. So that's why we're not supposed to envy them. One, because the Lord made us better than them. So we're just naturally, just better. So why would we be jealous of someone who's inferior to us? And also because we know how this ends. The story of these Edomites ends with their destruction. Why would you envy somebody, be jealous of somebody whose ultimate end is that they're going to get erased off the face of the earth? Their entire nation is going to be wiped off the face of the earth. Why would you be jealous of them? It looks like they have everything right now, because to an extent they do. The Lord gave them that. But compared to what those of us of the elect, of the hopeful elect, I should say, because we don't know if we're of the elect, but those of us of the hopeful elect, and ultimately all of Israel is going to experience in the kingdom, is going to be infinitely times better than everything that these Edomites have on this side. Like, you look at these Edomites right now and you'll think, oh yeah, they're living it up. Their life is great. But when we get into the kingdom, the way we're going to be living, what these Edomites have right now could never compare to that. And that's the mindset that we have to have. We have to have that mindset of, we're better than these Edomites. We're the Lord's favorite. So why would we be envious of someone who's weaker than we are, slower than we are, who's not as smart as we are. Like Esau could never compete with us. That's why these Edomites don't want us to have a level playing field with them, because they know that we would dominate. That whole thing that these Edomites are talking about, how they're so scared of being replaced by brown people. That's going to happen regardless, because the Lord has already set it up to be that way. See, Esau is scared that we are going to do to him what he's done to our people. And in the kingdom, within reason, of course, within, righteous boundaries, we are going to do unto them double as to what they did unto us and our ancestors. And for 1,000 years, these Edomites are going to have to endure that, double the punishment that they dished out unto us. And then after that 1,000 years, the Lord is going to have his people, the Israelites, round up these Edomites and wipe them off the face of the earth. You're never going to see an Edomite ever again. You're never going to see a so-called white person ever again. And that's a very beautiful thing to think about. Because just look at what they're doing to the earth. Look at what they have done and continue to do to the earth. Why would you want someone like that to continue to exist? The scriptures even say that if the Lord didn't speed up the times, no flesh would be saved, because these Edomites would kill off everybody through their wars, through their poisons, through the cutting of the trees, the chemtrails in the air, the fake food that they feed people, all the drugs. Like, everyone would just die off. So the Lord has to remove these Edomites out of the way. He has to. And that would be the Lord's mercy. In a nutshell, is the Lord taking these Edomites out of power and keeping them out of power until he erases them off the face of the earth. So, going back to Proverbs 3:31, it says, "Envy thou not the oppressor, and choose none of his ways." We're not supposed to follow these Edomites. We're not supposed to be lying and cheating and stealing and, murdering people and doing all of this wickedness, because we know how the story ends for these Edomites. And we don't want to be a part of that. We don't want to be a part of the destruction that we know is coming. So for all you sincere brothers and sisters, just keep in mind that we are the Israelites. We're the Lord's favorite. We're his chosen. And even though we're in our captivity right now, our time in captivity is coming to an end very quickly. We're getting closer and closer to that light at the end of the tunnel, which is our salvation. So keep your head held high and stay prayed up and stay locked in, because the kingdom is already prepared for us. We just have to watch and continue to endure. Watch as the Lord continues to bring down our enemies. Primarily, our main enemy, the so-called self-proclaimed white man, who's biblically known as an Edomite. So with that, I'm going to wrap it up here. In closing, I want to give all the praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim Rakakudash, the Wadi Yahweh, Bahashim Yahweh Shai, for putting this spirit on me to do this lesson. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Honors to all the brothers who are fervently pushing the word in sincerity and in faith. And shalom to all the sincere believers. Hope you all stay strong, stay safe, stay fervent, stay circumspect, stay prayed up, and Adawan Ratazah. Until next time, Shalom.